Hi there, my name is Louis Taylor. I'm a composer based in Bristol, and this video is about my entry into the Score Relief 2021 competition. We were tasked with scoring this great animation by Blender called Spring, and it was really fun to work with. Great little animation, lots of really cool musical opportunities within the film, and I wanted to just outline my process and give you guys a bit of insight into how I do things as a composer, what my process is start to finish, and hopefully you guys can take away something useful from it. If you guys are looking to become a composer or a film composer or anything like that, you might be able to learn gain some insight into how it's actually done. If nothing else, it's hopefully interesting to at least see the different things that I'm going to be using, the different sample instruments I'm going to be using, all of that sort of stuff. So first of all, let's watch this animation without the score and see what we have to work with. So without further ado, here it is. So let's just jump straight into Logic, I guess, and we'll start talking about the process. So if we just open up Logic, here we go. This is the project as it is, the session. So what I first would do normally, I would just go up to File, Movie, and import the movie. It would be Open Movie, and you just it would come up here, and I would extract the audio like I've done here, so you can actually mute it if you need to. And so you have your own track for the audio. You can turn it down if you want to keep it there for a bit. And then what I started to do was build my template. So I went with what we were tasked with, having a flute, oboe, clarinet, bassoon, 2 horns, 1 trumpet, 1 trombone, 1 percussionist, a piano, a harp, and a string orchestra. So in total, a really nice sort of chamber ensemble. I think it's 27 players in total that they're asking us for. Now, as you can see, I've got quite a few more things here than 27, and it's basically because a lot of these percussion instruments I'm going to be keeping as samples if it does somehow win. Basically because I still really wanted to include those percussion instruments, and I think that the BBC Symphony Orchestra percussion range is so versatile, and it sounds great, and there's a vast array of microphones you can use with it, which I can show you now. You know, you've got, for example, you've got your mix of everything. There's 2 mixes of everything that they've done. Jake Jackson's done these, I believe, and you've got your close, tree, out, ambient, all of these sorts of things. And then these are really cool as well. I like these ones. I haven't used these on the percussion, but on some of the other instruments I've used the mono and stereo ones, because they're actually traditional vintage microphones that the BBC actually used a while ago to actually record their orchestra traditionally. And there's other things here. There's the spill microphones, which are great if you want to use them, and the Atmos for Dolby Atmos if you're lucky enough to be able to use that. And it sounds great. It all sounds fantastic, and it's a great range. I personally quite often just go for a mix on the full, because it just sounds so realistic already out of the box. And as this was quite a short timescale, I actually had to do this in because of how busy I've been recently. I just wanted a quick mix. I didn't want to have to mess around with too many of these settings, and I just wanted something that was going to be easy, quick, and not too CPU intensive. And I just usually add a bit of close as well, because it helps me get more control over the actual reverb when I come to add that later. So I did all this. I put them into groups, and I added to each group, to all of these things, I put a bus on each group basically, and added certain reverbs. So for example, on the piano and all these tuned percussions, I'm going through this bus, and I've got this Chromaverb, and it's on the chamber setting, and I'm also using a little bit of the CLA Echosphere by Waves. It's a great little plugin. I think this was out for free a few weeks back. I think that's how I got it. So yeah, but anyway, we'll get more into the mixing stuff later. I just wanted to sort of outline the start to finish, so I've sort of accidentally jumped all the way to the end, but let's just talk about how I would start. So normally, what I tend to do, if I'm struggling to come up with a melody, which in this case I actually was, I usually go for a nice walk, good hour or so, get my coffee, get my coat on, all of that, go outside, and I'm just going to be thinking about the score in general, thinking about the style of the film, looking at all the nature around me if I can, trying to just take in the present moment as I'm walking around. And quite often I'll end up having this little creative spark, and a melody will just sort of come to me, and I'll start singing things, and eventually I'll be able to sort of have a coherent and actual cohesive melody in my head to an extent, and I can sing that, so I just sing it or whistle it discreetly into my phone while I'm out in public, or sometimes I actually take my notebook and write it down on some manuscript paper, and then I come back to the studio and I get right into it, and I'll score it, or I'll just play it on the piano for a while and try and work out the harmony and that sort of stuff. And after I've done that, I'll go through the template here, and I will do some tempo mapping. So if we pull down this here, you can see my tempo mapping. It's a little bit messy because I was trying to be quick with it all, but basically I want to start off at a nice steady tempo, move up to a slightly faster one here, because at this particular point there's a really dramatic scene. This is the bit where the tree falls down, and then I wanted this particular bit here to hit at this exact minute, this exact second, at 120, and gradually it would go up to 140 over here. So I'm just trying to basically map out how the scene feels, how fast the pacing and the editing is, and how fast I really want to express the music to be, what sort of tempo I want. And again, it goes down here, there's a bit of a rit here, just whilst the music's playing, so I can sort of expand this section here that you'll hear in a while, and then carry on back at 97 here. So that's what I first do. I go through, work out the pacing of the film, generally speaking. It's quite slow editing cuts at the beginning here, quite nice long cuts, and then it gets quite quicker when everything's going a bit wild, when there's that big chase scene. So that's that, and also I'll work out some time signature changes. So for the start, I wanted it to be in 3/4. I was really feeling this sort of lovely waltz type movement with the main melody, that everything is basically based off of this one melody. Goes back into 4/4 here. There's a 5/4 bar here where I wanted this. It lasts exactly the right amount of time for this big tree to fall over, and it lands at exactly the point when she drops the magic stick. And 7/8 is the signature. Sorry, the time signature that I wanted to go for in the chase section, and then back to 4/4 after that. So yeah, so that's basically the way I do it. And then what I'll tend to do once I've done all this tempo and signature mapping, I'll go into Dorico. And the reason I go into Dorico is because I can't think very well in a DAW vertically in the same way. I just find it so much easier to see all the notes. It's just how I've practiced, it's how I've learned how to do composition on a score with notation. It just works better in my head. So it's quicker for me to actually orchestrate it properly on the score like this than it is to just play it in. And I feel like actually, if I refine it like this, I get a much cleaner, tighter orchestration. So the first thing I actually did was I orchestrated this little chromatic sweeping bar here, which goes up to the where the tree's falling from, and I just literally started with this basic idea of rising here, harmonized it, go down into the other instruments, copy it down into the other instruments to orchestrate it and flesh it out, add a few other parts. I think there's about 5 parts here, and just there you go, you've done that bit. And then I thought, right, okay, I should probably do the main theme now. Because actually, this was the first idea I had, this chromatic sweep up. And then I came up with the main theme. And basically, I accidentally started in 4/4 and wanted this like nice intro, but I realised that I didn't actually have enough time in the score for that. So I re-planned it in 3/4 and did a slightly quicker version of the waltz, and I did add some other. I tend to make a basic sketch orchestration in Dorico, and then I'll move on into the DAW, into Logic, and I'll flesh it out a bit if I feel like I haven't done that enough already. If determined by how the samples actually sound. So yeah, and so I add all of this. I'll go through. This is the chase scene now. So I started off with a very simple ostinato in the strings here, and I'm going to play you all this in a moment. So we can go through it section by section. And actually, what I truly started with was this section here, because this was somehow what came to me. Without the bass line, I didn't actually have the bass line. The bass line is something I added in later to modulate, to help the modulation, because I wanted to start here in D minor still. And I kind of modulate here because that's just how I felt the music was going. And then I realised, oh, I need to actually go back to D major here. So I used the bass line as a means of getting through to D major. I just sat down, worked out what the harmony would be with this violin line that I'd written already, and then basically just tried to use that to voice lead perfectly as I could into D major. D minor. And then we're back in D minor here again, because it just nicely leads on to the next section. This is actually an unused bit of music here, and then right at the end here we've got the funny little comic relief bit with the dog barking, and the big refreshing main theme with a little flute solo here, which again, this was more of just a sketch. I didn't actually use any of this flute solo material, so as you can see, it's very loose to an extent in some areas, and I just sort of wanted to go about doing it in Dorico so I could get a clear idea of it in my head. And then I pull that over to my second screen and I go into Logic and I play it all in with the sampling. So I'll just show you what sample instruments I've got. I'll go back to Logic. So what I'm using for this particular score is I actually really love Spitfire Symphonic Winds. So I'm using these for all of the instruments in the Woodwinds. I just think personally they just sound so much cleaner and tighter and more realistic to me than the BBC ones. I love the BBC ones and I think they're great, and the fact that it comes in one whole package just astonishing, really. It's never truly been done like that before, but I just think personally, for me, the Symphonic winds by Spitfire sound the best. Another problem I have with the BBC orchestra is that I couldn't really get behind the brass. I really like the trumpet in the BBC, but what I ended up having to do a few months back is buy a new one that could be a bit more versatile. So I bought Cinematic Studio Brass, and I think it's absolutely to die for. It's so good. It's just got all of these amazing sounds, and the legato is great. It's got all these rips, the flutter tongue. It's got an absolute plethora of great sounding stuff. So I actually did this in a multi-instrument just to save some CPU. Just to save me time later down the line, really. And usually with the articulation changes, I would actually just use key switching and modulation switching in the case of certain articulations within the Cinematic Studio Brass range. But for these rips, you can see I've actually used a basic plugin. Just the plugin of the rip. I've disabled all the other things in there. Just the rip, and I've just placed it because I wanted it to rip up to the note that I was hitting, and you can't really do that any other way that's clean other than putting in a separate track. For the piano, I'm actually using Addictive keys, which I think is a great piano. It's got all of these different microphones you can use. You can EQ it directly in the software. It's got several built-in effects. It's got a great pedal. Overall, really nice tone. I think it was modelled off a Steinway D. Model D, and overall just a great sounding piano, and you can really heavily manipulate the tone just to how you want it, and I think it's just great for that. Harp, I'm using Spitfire, the Spitfire Harp by CLA Echosphere, and it's great. It's got all of these different articulations as well that you can use. It sounds so crisp and clear. The mic positions you can change really nicely, so that all works well. Pretty much all the other percussion I'm using is BBC Symphony Orchestra. And I'm using BBC Symphony Orchestra Strings as well, because that's actually just the library I mainly use at the moment. I just really like the tone of them and the way they work nicely with the other BBC instruments that I'm using in terms of mixing. So then I'm just going to take you through a couple of the other sample instruments that I'm using. So we've got here I never know how to say this, I'm just going to say the new hit, or the new hit, I don't know. It's a sort of synth. I'll give you a flavour of that. It's just sort of... very nice tone. It's got a lovely simple UI that just looks very minimalistic and quite beautiful in some ways. You can change the attack, so instead of having, and you can automate all of this, which is really lovely. You can, instead of having a more hit sort of plucked sort of vibe, you can go for a more pad, which is really nice. And this is free, by the way. This is on PianoBook, on pianobook.co.uk, I think it is, or it might be pianobook.com. I'll put a link in the description for that. It's a really great thing. It's got built-in reverb, which I add a little bit of, but mainly I just use my own reverbs. You can add a filter, and you can edit the release. It's a really nice little synth. And I'm using this really cool, very basic, there's no UI at all actually, but very basic singing bowl hits with fingernail. These sound really quite unique, so I thought they were quite symbolic of the ritualistic nature of this. So I'll give you a little flavour of that just by... Yeah, it's quite... You can tell it's a sample when it's down there, but up in this sort of middle range, it sounds really nice. So I thought I'd use some of that, and some of the high notes as well, like this one. Very nice. Again, when you get a bit higher, you can sort of tell it's been the pitch has been manipulated to get that high, I feel. So I try not to use too much of that. I try and stick in the most realistic range possible, just because I want it to sound like a real singing bowl. It's not that these lows and highs don't sound good. It's just that I wanted it to sound realistic. I didn't want that extra flavour. So yeah, that's that basically. Oh, and a couple of the other extra things I'm using. I've got the London Contemporary Orchestra Strings by Spitfire, which are great. They've got all of these really interesting articulations. In this, I'm using the granular tremolos, which I can just briefly demo for you here. Really nice, sort of irregular trems that sound really gritty and gnarly, and I'm using that to sort of hint that something's kind of about to go wrong just at this moment here, when she nearly gets hit by a tree and everything goes wrong, because that's really, for me, the pivotal point of the film. If that doesn't happen, everything would have gone to plan, but it does, and that's what the whole rest of the big drama is based off of. It's all on this moment, because it all hangs on this moment basically. She drops it, and then she has to get it back, and if she doesn't get it back, she's screwed. So that is the catalyst of the entire drama, really. So I really wanted to make that quite a big deal, because the whole rest of the film wouldn't really exist in any way, shape or form that's similar to the way it does without this moment. So yeah, I wanted to sort of make that bit a little bit spooky, and I also added the I think I'm using the same patch here. Oh, I was using the granular tremolo on this one too, which sounds. Oh, it's not playing for some reason. On the cello, really nice as well. And then finally, just to skim over, we've got these really cool bowed quattros, which I think is a really nice UI as well. So this is from Piano Book as well, I believe, and it sounds really interesting. This is actually a filter. It's a filter on the modulation here. You can really start to hear that quattro sound. Really, really cool, quite dramatic, and a similar sort of one by the same person, same actual VST. It's a little bit more realistic sounding. It's a little bit slower, not so aggressive, and you get more of those sort of almost Sol Ponte sounds, those harmonics coming through there. Really nice indeed. So now you've got an idea of all of the different instruments that I'm using to make this sound the way it does. Let's have a listen to the whole film as itself, and then we'll go through and break through each section as they are, and I'll just sort of talk about why I did the sections the way they are. So here is the actual final score. Okay, great. I hope you guys enjoyed that. So now we've listened to the whole thing, I'm just gonna try and break down each section just to give you guys a little bit more detail into the actual piece itself. So let's just go through here and listen to each section as it is. So here we have the opening, and it's the start of the main theme, and I really wanted this to just capture the mood of the whole film in general. Enchanted Forest, really lovely vibes toward the beginning and end, very ritualistic, quite cozy feeling, generally speaking, and just wholesome, up nature, you know, that sort of stuff. It's spring. It's all about spring and the arrival of spring. It's very nature-based film. Like I say, very fantastical. It's a fantasy at the end of the day. So I wanted it to sort of capture that entire mood in one sort of theme. So let's just have a quick listen to that. Right, so basically I just wanted this nice waltz going on. I started with the strings. So the way I sort of went about that was just, I worked out the chord progression, very simple chord progression. It was all about the melody really, so I didn't really want much of a interesting harmonic thing going on there. Didn't want it to distract from the melody itself. And I think that this chord progression, being simple, just sort of helps captivate the viewer a little bit easier. You can get a bit more complex with your progressions later on if you want. I mean, you can do whatever you want ultimately. I'm just telling about how I go about these things and how I was feeling about it. So I usually work out the chords and then work out a sort of melodic way to write each note of the chord from one to the next, because it's strings ultimately, and they're sort of just playing. They're going to be less interested if they're just playing notes that haven't really been written for them as strings. If they're just like a piano transcription and they've been arranged for strings and it's just block chords throughout the orchestra, it's not going to be very inspiring for them to play, and ultimately it's probably not going to sound as good in the orchestration in the final thing. So I wanted it to be, you know, as you can see, I've got this nice sort of so they're all very much smoothly leading from one note to the next. There's basically only one or two jumps, and it's usually not more than a minor third or something like that. It's really close anyway. So I feel like if you do it so that the voice leading is as smooth as possible in every single part, and try and avoid things like clashing harmony throughout them and doubling too many notes, so that you get a nice rich sound but you have the voice leading too, you're going to have a better result. I tend to have that. And then just to flesh it out a bit, I just doubled the top two parts into the clarinet bassoon, and I think or it might have been the bottom two parts I think it's the bottom two parts in the horns, and just a harp, very simple harp chords, and a little counter line as well in the flute, which I'll just single that out. So yeah, that's basically the first section. Next one, quite simple really. I just wanted a nice sort of almost bold progression into this like mighty forest, being enchanted, almost being released from its enchantment. But then all of a sudden it sort of goes downhill quite rapidly, as you probably heard, and everything sort of goes nuts, goes bananas. So I won't really need to play through all of that, but I'll just take you through a few things. I used the new hits to hit the bass notes on the hits. I'm tried to match it with the timing of this rod hitting the ground. I did the same thing for piano, and then I just added these granular tremolos and the bowed quattro. Just solo them out. They're basically just sound design type things, just to add a sense of, hold on, something is going wrong here. This doesn't feel quite comfortable. It feels a little bit like something could go wrong. And it is quite a dark-natured scene. You know, the colouring is very dark. It's not the most cosy, warm scene. It's very cold, eerie. So that's that basically. And then I just sort of wanted it all to build up into this big dramatic rise. Now, the other important thing about this bit was I really wanted there to be a break of silence, because it gives you somewhere to go from, and that's the same as just after the main theme as well. There's a sort of area of silence around here. I wanted the sound effects to allow the sound effects to breathe, and I wanted to give the film a sense like it really did have somewhere else to go, and there was quite a lot more to come. And it allows me to do that musically if there's silence, because you really are at a bass level, absolutely nothing. You can go, it's even more dramatic if you go from there to something really hard hitting. But you know, I could have easily started the chase scene music here, you know, done the chromatic sweep, and then bam into the ostinato type stuff in the 7/8 section. And I could have done that, but I just felt like it was like, oh my goodness, this is quite a dramatic moment. The rod is flying off, the sound of the rod is echoing all around. Everyone's like, what's going on? Oh my goodness. And then it starts off again when everyone starts realising that they need to get this rod, and everything hands in the balance of it. You have this, I put in there this sort of sol-pont tremolo cluster that sort of rises and rises in intensity and then releases into the fast chase section music. So I'm just going to play some of this. I won't bother with all of it, but here we go. So yeah, that's basically the chase scene. It's all based around this part here in the horns. I've got here the actual main theme, essentially developed into the key of C minor, going between C minor 7 and B major 7, it's quite a nice sort of chord progression that just like leads into one another, nice and easy, but it also just feels a little bit sort of like something's going wrong, really, generally to me, or it can sound quite generally pleasant anyway. Just that nice changing seventh chords, it's quite, yeah, but I felt like it was quite useful in this instance, and basically you've still got this not really sure why this playing rips. You've got this melody from the main part. That's basically what's going on, but it's just in a different key with different notes because of the harmony, and then everything's rising here. So that's basically that, and again in the trumpets here you've got the same sort of thing coming up here. Themes there, and yeah, I just wanted it to sort of stay relevant as relevant as possible, and also, like I say, it's in a kind of funky chord progression that just doesn't feel quite like it's at home at all, really. It feels quite distant because the chords are quite distant from each other in their nature anyway, so yeah, being able to incorporate this theme within that, I feel like adds an element of you're still relevant to the story, but it's really quite far from where it needs to be, and that's exactly really what's going on. So that's just how I interpreted that. So I feel like that's quite a good way of looking at things. If you can try and figure out a way to make the score feel like it's actually still part of the story, but develop the theme in a way which makes it feel like it's actually relevant to what's happening. And in this case, what was happening is that they were far away from where they needed to be, and that's how I wanted to make it feel. So moving on, there's a big patch of silence here, the biggest patch in the entire film, and I just wanted to be like a big sigh. Everything's sort of like fine now, basically. It's just big sigh of relief, a very refreshing break from all this massive chaos that comes before it. And then a little bit of comic relief when they realise the dog's missing, so you have this little bassoon. Again, I've got the main melody here. I'll just solo that out for you. The notes are really adjusted just to play with the counterpoint in the oboe, and then I just orchestrated that a little bit so that it was doubling in some other instruments that complemented the actual counterpoint. And I wanted that to hit at that particular moment, and everything starts building up here. So here we've got this big open, quite pentatonic feeling rise in all of the instruments. In the brass I copied a bit from earlier, which is this bit where the horns have this little motif from the beginning of the main melody. Did that in the horns here. And in the strings, I've just got this really open sounding, building, almost canonic, I suppose it is canonic, progression, pentatonic sort of progression, melody type idea. And I had the idea of having these trills here, actually on the D minor chord, but in a sort of modal fashion, which holds when everything is really like, we're finally here. It's like this big sort of, terrific victory type thing that I'm going for, really. But still, I didn't want it to be like a fanfare or anything like that. I just wanted it to be like a triumphant moment, because it is really a massive triumph. Everything's going to be fine. Spring has come and it's glorious. And I just doubled that in some of the other instruments like the woodwinds. And then finally, when we get to this point, we go on to the almost like a reprise of the main theme, but it's in 4/4 now. It's kind of still waltz-like, but in 4/4. And it's basically just saying we finally arrived where we needed to be. The melody's gone from all this point, and now it's finally here. great. That's basically how I wanted it to feel. So we'll just listen to that through, and I basically just to quickly break it down. In the strings, I've got the melody and the violins, and the accompaniment is this. So that's that, and I just copy that across throughout the orchestra and arrange it so it's nice and harmonic, and same with the brass. Copied the flute as well, doubling that with the violins is a nice way to sort of make the melody feel even more bright. And it blends nicely, so you can't really hear the two differentiating instruments. They just sort of become one unified, refreshing, bright instrument. So let's just take it from here, and we'll listen to just up to before the ending. And all of this is just a nice little flute harp break to try and... I wanted to really let the sound effects here breathe. I felt that the bird songs were really beautiful, and I didn't want to overpower them too much with music, but I still wanted some music, so I just wanted to keep it simple with the flute and harp, giving a nice sort of quite archaic sound, really. The harp and the flute are very old instruments. They go back thousands of years. So coming to this moment, it's... finally all naturalistic and beautiful. I wanted it to be quite simplistic and pure. And then finally at the end here we've got this quite regal, majestic section. I wanted it to feel really like triumphant, like before, but regal and sort of still quite pure and slow and like, yes, just impressive, really. Not the music itself being impressive, but I wanted the fact that they'd achieved this to be impressive, and the whole mountain range that you could see is absolutely impressive. It's beautiful, it's phenomenal. So that's that basically. And I just wanted to, I can quickly actually show you, it might be useful in Dorico. What I actually do is I just go through, and I find it really nice if I can like actually see on here the different parts that I'm using. So I use this trumpet solo. I really like having a trumpet solo for some reason with like these mountains in the background. It just seems so fitting. I did actually edit a few things here, but just so you can get an idea, I'll play it from here so you can hear it in the actual in Logic in just a moment. But it's basically just this really simple basic progression, going from sort of D minor type feel to B flat major, G minor, and then A minor, and then back to D minor, and it just feels like everything has finally come together and is complete. So I'll just play that last section, and that will be that. So that's that, really. That's the whole thing. That's how I go about it from start to finish, and like I say, everything in between, the breakdown, all of that. So sorry if you found this a bit long. Do comment actually if you would rather this to be a more concise video. I just wanted to get everything out there, and I hope you guys can take some insight from my process and how to do things in the future, and generally found this both interesting, educational and enjoyable. So thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. It means an awful lot to me. If you could like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell if you want notifications, that would be great. It really helps me out for the upcoming videos, and hopefully I'll see you all soon. Thanks so much. Bye.